Thank you for taking the time to follow Nghe An Newspaper, the newspaper's YouTube channel, and Nghe An Radio and Television on digital platforms. Now let's follow the most prominent information that has just happened. On 23rd, Danish police made a statement regarding the strange UAV that appeared to disrupt operations at the country's main airport in Copenhagen and Oslo Airport in Norway. Speaking to the press about the incident, Mr. ZP avoided the Danish police inspector and said, "We concluded that the person controlling the UAV had the ability, the purpose, and the means to carry out the incident." Mr. Zespen said that the UAVs detected in Copenhagen and Oslo flew from many different directions, constantly turning on and off the lights and then disappearing after a few hours. Earlier, on the evening of 22nd local time, Copenhagen Airport, Denmark's largest airport, had to stop operations for about 4 hours after detecting the drones. In a statement on social network X, police said that Copenhagen Airport had temporarily stopped takeoffs and landings due to the detection of 2 to 3 large drones in the area. Copenhagen Airport, the busiest airport in Northern Europe, was shut down at 8:26 p.m. local time, according to flight tracking service Flyradar. About 50 flights were diverted to other airports. Police are investigating the origin of the devices but have not provided further details. The airport has now reopened. However, airport officials said delays and some flight cancellations will continue. Passengers should check with their airline. On the same day, a spokesman for Norway's Oslo Airport said the airport had also closed its airspace to monitor the drones. All flights were diverted to the nearest airport. Earlier, according to CNN, police in the Norwegian capital Oslo announced that they had detected a series of UAVs flying over Akershus Fortress, a medieval castle built in Oslo and sometimes used for government events. This is a no-fly zone for UAVs. It is unclear whether the incident near Oslo Airport and the incident near Akershus Fort are related. Oslo police have arrested 2 foreign nationals for the incident near Akershus Fort but have not yet released their identities. European countries have activated a high-security state after the incident. Poland and Romania accused Russia of deploying UAVs and fighter jets to move into their airspace. CNN said there was no indication that the incidents in Norway and Denmark were related to Russia. The incident occurred just days after Collin Aerospace, a service provider for many major airports in Europe, was hacked, affecting operations at KR Airport in London, England, as well as airports in Berlin, Germany, and Brussels, Belgium. On 23rd, speaking at a press conference in Berlin, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius warned that an outrageous reaction to Russian airspace violations could threaten peace and security in Europe. He said it was an escalatory trap set for us to fall into. "We will not do what Russia wants. We will not allow ourselves to be provoked." Minister Pistorius stressed that Germany will continue to defend NATO airspace against violations in favor of a carefully considered solution. Instead of reacting hastily, stressing the importance of a proper balance in response, he said that the recent violations did not have a clear aggressive intent. "Soberness is not cowardice or fear, but responsibility for one's country and peace in Europe." He added, "Rash proposals like shooting down an object in the sky or a show of force will not help much at this time." Earlier, NATO Secretary-General Marat said the alliance would decide whether to attack Russian aircraft based on threat intelligence. Mr. Rod expressed a similar view to Minister Missis when assessing that the Russian MiG-31 flight into Estonia last week did not pose a direct threat. The comments came after Polish Foreign Minister Radikowski said the country was ready to shoot down missiles and aircraft that violated its airspace, whether accidentally or intentionally. Prime Minister Donaldus also affirmed that Poland would shoot down flying objects that violated its airspace and flew over its territory, stressing that this is not a matter of debate. On May 23, on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, in New York, U.S. President Donald Trump held a multilateral meeting with leaders of several Arab and other countries, including Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Indonesia, Turkey, and Pakistan. Speaking about the meeting, Mr. Trump declared, "This is my most important meeting. I have had many important meetings. I do not want to offend anyone I have met. We have had 3 meetings here. But this meeting is especially important for me because we will end something that should never have started. In the meeting room, President Trump sat in the chair while other leaders arranged along the conference table: U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Benn, and Envoy Steve Kopp were also present at the meeting. Before entering the room, President Trump told reporters that he was preparing for a very important meeting on the Gaza issue. On the same day, President Trump had a bilateral meeting with his French counterpart, Emmanuel Macron. The two leaders discussed the situation in Gaza and the prospect of establishing a Palestinian state, the issue on which Washington and Paris have different views. When asked about their stance on the Palestinian state, President Trump continued to strongly oppose recognition, stressing that recognition would be a gift to Hamas. He said that, as if to encourage the conflict to continue, some members of the United Nations are unilaterally recognizing the state of Palestine. This would be a huge reward for Ham after the terrible acts they have committed. France, Britain, Canada, Australia, Portugal, Belgium, Malta, Monaco, and Luxembourg have recognized the state of Palestine in the past few days. This would be a huge reward for Ham after the terrible acts they have committed. France, Britain, Canada, Australia, Portugal, Belgium, Malta, Monaco, and Luxembourg have recognized the state of Palestine in the past few days. This move, which stems from dissatisfaction with Israel's war in Gaza and is aimed at promoting a two-state solution, has angered Israel and its close allies, making the United States very angry. At the General Assembly, Mr. Trump said that the powers should focus on ensuring the remaining hostages in Gaza are released. He stressed that, instead of giving in to Hamas demands, those who want peace should unite with a single message: release the hostages immediately. Just release the hostages. We must end the fighting in Gaza immediately to achieve the goal. In response, President Macron emphasized that recognizing the Palestinian state does not mean ignoring the attacks of Hamas and Israel in October 2023. Analysts assess that the recent recognition of the Palestinian state by some countries is unlikely to change the situation on the ground, but still helps the Palestinian state significantly improve its position in its efforts to become a truly sovereign state. Regarding the Ukraine issue, Mr. Trump continued to harshly criticize European allies as well as China and India for not stopping oil purchases from Russia. He repeatedly mentioned the possibility of sanctions against Russia but has not yet implemented them. He said, in case Russia does not want to reach an agreement to end the hostilities, the United States is fully ready to impose heavy tariffs, but for these measures to be effective, all European countries, who are present here, will have to join us in imposing similar measures. The U.S. leader did not elaborate on the measures but said he was considering a package that would include sanctions against countries that do business with Russia. Russia's main European oil customers include Hungary, Slovakia, and Turkey. In his 56-minute speech, the U.S. president also said recent attacks by U.S. forces on boats allegedly carrying drugs from Venezuela had sent a stern warning. To all the drug traffickers coming into the United States, beware, we will wipe you out, Trump said. He claimed that each boat blown up contained enough drugs to kill more than 25,000 Americans, but did not provide evidence. South Korean President Lee Chung-ho addressed the United Nations General Assembly on March 23, pledging to end the vicious cycle of unnecessary military tensions with North Korea in order to achieve peaceful coexistence and development. In his first speech to the UN General Assembly, Lee emphasized his vision of a step-by-step solution to the North Korean nuclear issue based on the sober recognition that denuclearization cannot be achieved in the short term. Lee said the UN will steadfastly pursue the path of reducing military tensions and restoring trust in North Korea, citing recent actions such as stopping the delivery of propaganda leaflets and loudspeaker broadcasts into North Korea. The South Korean leader said that gradually expanding bilateral exchanges and cooperation would pave the way for lasting peace. President Lee also announced an initiative at the General Assembly that revolves around three pillars of normalization and denuclearization exchanges to end confrontation and usher in a new era of peace on the Korean Peninsula. Following in his footsteps, Mr. Lee did not go into details of how the dialogue formula would be implemented, but the initiative is expected to become a pillar of Seoul's efforts to encourage Pyongyang's denuclearization through multiple channels, including the possibility of resuming dialogue between the US and North Korea. The South Korean president's proposal came just days after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un reaffirmed his stance of rejecting inter-Korean dialogue and opposing any discussion of the nuclear program. But in a conciliatory signal to the North, Mr. Lee said his government clearly reaffirmed its respect for the current Korean system, would not pursue any form of unification by merger, and had no intention of conducting hostile acts. President Lee also noted the need for international cooperation in the denuclearization process. Mr. Lee said, "The international community must pool its wisdom to build a practical and phased solution, starting from halting the development of nuclear and missile capabilities and continuing through reduction and dismantling." On March 23, the Russian Defense Ministry announced that its military had carried out raids on temporary deployment points of Ukrainian special forces and foreign mercenaries of the Phantom Unit, which Russia said was responsible for preparing and carrying out the attack on the Crimean Peninsula. Moscow also announced that it had struck UAV depots at Skotny Airport in the Odessa region, where the attack was believed to have been launched, and the Crimean Peninsula. The Russian Defense Ministry said that Russian forces had also carried out raids on Ukrainian drone assembly plants. Earlier, Ukrainian drones attacked a healthcare complex on the Russian peninsula and destroyed a school building on March 21. A civilian was killed and 16 injured in the Ukrainian raid. Moscow stressed that there were no military facilities in the resort. Meanwhile, Ukraine's HUR military intelligence agency said its elite Phantom unit carried out an operation targeting Russian naval aviation assets in the Crimean Peninsula over the weekend. Video footage from the attack showed Ukrainian drones descending on the military base and hitting B-12K boat hunting amphibious aircraft, while also destroying a Russian Mi-8 helicopter. The raids over the weekend were part of a new series of KF attacks on Moscow's Black Sea Fleet, which have destroyed several helicopters, radars, and other military equipment this month. Ukraine has increasingly turned to long-range drones to strike targets inside Russia. Amid KF difficulties on the battlefield, Ukrainian raids on Russian energy and civilian infrastructure have left dozens dead and injured. Moscow has long accused KF of deliberately targeting Russian civilians. Russia has repeatedly responded to Ukrainian attacks by carrying out airstrikes using drones and long-range missiles. The Russian Defense Ministry stressed that Moscow only targets Ukrainian military sites such as troop concentrations, weapons depots, and fuel storage facilities, and does not attack civilians or civilian infrastructure. Euromaidan Press recently reported that Ukraine has been conducting systematic attacks on Russian air defense sites from hundreds of kilometers away. After months of preparation, the KF strategy has now become clear as they have repeatedly sought to destroy radars, launchers, and control modules to reduce Russia's ability to control the skies so that the KF can gain air superiority. Several recent operations show the scale of the Ukrainian effort near the town of Boyaplenka in the Don region. A Russian M1 missile launcher was directly tracked. A reconnaissance UAV tracked its location. Then a bomber UAV began dropping explosives directly, causing a huge explosion. In Zabaria, Ukrainian forces destroyed a rare control module of the BNOT Air Defense Command System, a center that links radars with launchers and is capable of coordinating multiple launches at once. In Rostov, a Russian long-range Nebo radar was attacked at night. The fire was confirmed by NASA satellites. Further north, a Sokata radar station at Voronezh was also hit, which is believed to have destroyed the 10 at Krum. Ukraine targeted Russia's Portlet and Nebom radars. These strikes spanned thousands of kilometers but had the same goal: to destroy the infrastructure that keeps the Russian air defense network running. By disabling early warning radars and central coordination modules, Ukraine created a gap in the enemy's ability to detect and respond. By destroying interceptor launchers with integrated radars and control modules like Penner or Buk, they weakened Russia's ability to patch holes in its multi-layered defense system. By attacking systems like BNOT, which coordinate radar data, firing orders, and even external support forces, Ukraine sought to disrupt the enemy's command network. And as Russia's steel shield was fragmented, the rear area was more vulnerable to attack. The territory that Russia has to protect is very large, and therefore ensuring complete defense is not simple. Any affected link can become a red hole for the enemy to exploit. According to Euromaidan Press, Ukraine's raids show the growing role of UAVs from reconnaissance to heavy bombing. Shark UAVs often support positioning and guidance for these raids. With deeper targets, fixed-wing suicide UAVs are launched to attack radar stations in Rostov, foreign, or in some rare cases, Ukraine also uses fighters to carry out the task of suppressing and destroying enemy air defenses. Ukraine's efforts take place in the context of Russia being overwhelming in both numbers and weapons. The US-based ISW Institute for the Study of War said that since the beginning of this year, Russia has increased its recruitment efforts and ensured the regular rotation of reserve force ammunition to the battlefield to replace troops. Meanwhile, the UK is facing a serious shortage of soldiers, forcing many soldiers to serve for months without a break. In addition, Russia's military machines are also rapidly accelerating, giving them an increasingly large advantage on the front line in terms of weapons. Ukraine finds it difficult to directly confront the Russian forces, which are considered to have more advantages, and the Kyiv's choice of a wide-ranging but precise attack on air defense systems is seen as an effort to reduce the opponent's combat capability. In addition, the destruction of Ukraine's air defense systems will make it difficult for Russia to quickly replace them, creating conditions for the Kyiv's UAV raids to become more effective.
Poland and Sweden have just conducted their first joint military exercise, called Snake Center, to enhance the common defense capabilities of the two countries and ensure security in the Baltic Sea region. Speaking to the press, Polish Defense Minister Jan Kamiś emphasized that the above exercise was conducted based on the defense agreement signed by Poland and Sweden last month, focusing on coordinated activities in the Baltic Sea and cooperation in defense technology. Meanwhile, Swedish Defense Minister P. Johnson reaffirmed the importance of the defense agreement signed with Poland, emphasizing that this agreement will open up many opportunities for defense cooperation between the two countries as well as conduct joint activities including bilateral exercises. According to the Polish Armed Forces Operational Command, the Snake format, also known as short notice exercise, is one of the most rigorous forms of military training to test the actual combat readiness of participating forces. The exercises are designed with limited preparation time, thus emphasizing high mobility and interoperability between units. GLAN Cross-G includes land, sea and air operations to enhance the joint defense readiness of the two countries, while ensuring security in the Baltic region. In addition, the exercise also focuses on testing the ability to quickly respond to unexpected situations and improve interoperability in complex environments, helping the two countries be ready to deal with potential threats. The Godlinchi exercise takes place in the context of the complicated developments of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which has significantly impacted the security situation of Poland, Sweden, and the Baltic region. According to analysts, the first joint exercise of Poland and Sweden is not only a military training activity but also demonstrates the role of these two countries in ensuring security in the Baltic region in particular and the European region in general.